Caught my wife with another man. Now I'm getting a divorce after 10 years together. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I, 35M, never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My wife, 34F, and I have been together for 10 years, married for 7. We met when we were in our mid-20s and quickly became inseparable. She was everything I wanted in a partner: smart, beautiful, funny, and driven. We moved in together after 2 years of dating, and everything felt like it was falling into place. I proposed, and we had a beautiful wedding surrounded by friends and family. I honestly thought I had hit the jackpot. The first few years of our marriage were great. We bought a house, talked about starting a family, and supported each other's careers. I work in finance, and she's in marketing, so our schedules can get a bit hectic, but we always made time for each other, or at least, we used to. About a year ago, I started noticing changes in her behavior. At first, they were subtle, little things like spending more time on her phone, being vague about who she was texting, and staying late at work more often. I brushed it off because she had just started a big project at work, and I figured the extra time was just part of her job. But the changes kept coming. She started going out more, saying it was girls' nights or work happy hours. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it, but something felt off. She seemed distant when she was home, barely talking to me or showing any interest in spending time together. Our intimacy took a nosedive, and when I brought it up, she'd either say she was too tired or not in the mood. I tried to be understanding, but it felt like she was slipping away from me. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid or insecure. After all, we had always trusted each other, and I never had any reason to doubt her before. But as the months went by, that gut feeling kept growing, and I couldn't shake it. One night, about 3 months ago, she went out with her work friends again. She left the house around 7 p.m., saying she'd be back by 11. I tried to occupy myself, watching TV and working on some projects around the house, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. Something just didn't feel right. She didn't come home until almost 2 a.m. When she walked in, she was stumbling, clearly drunk, and laughing to herself. I asked her where she had been, and she gave me some half-hearted excuse about her friends deciding to go to another bar after their first stop. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake the suspicion that something more was going on. I went to bed that night feeling sick to my stomach. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened, but I couldn't stop replaying the night in my head. I had to know what was going on. I hated myself for it, but I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I had never invaded her privacy like that before, and I felt like a complete asshole for doing it. But at that point, I needed answers. That's when I found the messages. She had been texting some guy from her office, a guy I had never heard her mention before. The messages weren't just flirty, they were explicit. I felt my chest tighten as I scrolled through weeks of texts between them. It wasn't just an emotional affair. They had been meeting up, going to hotels, sneaking around behind my back. She told him things she hadn't told me in years, things that made me realize how disconnected we had become. The worst part? She had been with him the night before, while I was sitting at home waiting for her. I sat there in shock, my hands shaking as I read message after message. I wanted to throw her phone across the room, but instead, I put it back where I found it and walked out of the house. I needed to clear my head, figure out what I was going to do. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process everything I had just discovered. When I got back, she was already up, acting like it was just another normal day. I couldn't look at her. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't know how. I needed to gather my thoughts, make a plan. I spent the next few days in a daze, barely able to look her in the eye without wanting to scream. Every time she touched me or tried to talk to me, I felt sick. How could she pretend everything was fine after what she'd done? A week later, I decided to confront her. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat her down and asked her point blank if she was cheating on me. She looked stunned for a moment, like she hadn't expected me to figure it out. Then, she denied it. She said I was being ridiculous, that I was imagining things. That's when I pulled out the screenshots I had taken of her messages. Her face went pale, and she just sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she admitted it. She told me she had been seeing this guy for almost 6 months. 6 months. She said it started out as just talking, but it escalated into something physical. She told me she didn't mean for it to happen, that she never wanted to hurt me, but that she felt like she wasn't happy in our marriage anymore. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the woman I had devoted my life to, The person I had trusted completely, and she had been sneaking around with some other guy for months, all while pretending like we were fine. I told her I wanted a divorce. She begged me to reconsider, said we could go to therapy, that we could fix things, but I was done. I couldn't trust her anymore. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I packed a bag that night and went to stay with a friend. The next day, I contacted a lawyer and started the process of filing for divorce. It's been 2 months since then, and I'm still struggling to wrap my head around everything. The divorce process is slow, and it's been hard to navigate the emotional fallout. She's been reaching out, trying to apologize, saying she made a mistake, but the damage is done. I can't forgive her. I don't even recognize the person she's become. I never thought this would be my life. I feel like everything I've built over the past decade has crumbled. I'm angry, heartbroken, and lost, but I know this is the right decision. I deserve better than someone who would betray me like this. Has anyone else been through something similar? How do you move on from something like this? How do you rebuild your life after such a massive betrayal? Any advice would be appreciated. TLDR, I caught my wife cheating on me with a guy from her office. After discovering months of texts and secret meetups, I confronted her, and she admitted to the affair. I'm filing for divorce after 10 years together, and I don't know how to move on.